Hooday!
Each week on this video, we've given you sneaky ads, some sneaky stats, and now we're at the conference championship. I'm Alan Zaslowski, he's Jeff Erickson. Let's talk about a few of the storylines and under-the-radar stats that could be interesting as we start to form our DFS lineups, our prop bets, and overall predictions of the games. Let's start with the San Francisco 49ers. What do you have there for us?
So first of all, it's interesting. They played each other in Week 18. The Bengals and Chiefs played each other in Week 17, which is functionally the last game that mattered for the Bengals. So, we've got some idea of how these games are going to play out, at least how ideally they're going to play out. Has much changed since then? Maybe with the Chiefs it has. We'll get to them in a second. But let's start with the Niners. George Kittle has, he had a couple of catches against the Packers, but he is not the same game-breaking tight end that he's been in a long time. In the previous Rams game in Week 18, he's used a lot more for blocking, and I think the same is going to happen here. I think the Niners have to grind the Rams into a pulp. That's their pathway to victory. So I'm not going to start George Kittle in DFS lineups this weekend. I will find another tight end. I might go Higbee. In fact, I'll probably go Higbee. He had a big game against the Niners in that game in Week 18, so that's probably the way to go with that. Although I haven't seen the prices yet, it's early in the week.
Kittle's the second highest priced tight end. He's $5,000 compared to Higbee, who's only $3,700.
Yeah, so I think it's a no-brainer to go Higbee over Kittle. People are going to want to find ways to stack Chiefs. So you save a tight end, and maybe that's one way you factor that in. You might even use Kelsey and Higbee perhaps, and you do some weird sort of flex there. But point is, you don't go with Kittle. You pay for Debo, you pay for Mitchell, and then I don't think you really pay for any of the other Niners.
It's very early in the week, and you just mentioned Debo. If for some reason he's out, and he's going to play, if some reason, let's just do what ifs here. People, would that change your stance on Kittle, or do you still want to pivot to the cheaper option like Higbee?
I would think I'd even more want to pivot.
Where's your prediction for where George Kittle will get drafted?
Think about him relative to other tight ends. He's going to go behind Andrews, behind Kelsey. Pitts versus Kittle will be interesting because I think a lot of people are going to be on the Pitts' ascendant train. I mean, he still got over 1,000 yards. Only got the one touchdown, but the yardage was there. I think that Kittle will probably be tight end 5.
I think next year is one of the years where people are going to fade tight ends in the top 24 picks, at least in the top 20 picks. Maybe it won't be able to resist Kelsey at the end of the second round. We'll see. All right, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams.
Well, the first thing is, remember, Cam Akers was just like a feel-good story this game in Week 18. He barely played, had 13 snaps. Compare that to this past week against the Bucs, where he had 58 snaps. Sony Michel only had 14. Now, he averaged 2 yards a carry, and he coughed up 2 fumbles. So we'll see. I think he's on a little bit of a tight leash because of those 2 fumbles, but he's clearly the first option. And I think this matchup against the Niners is similar to that against the Bucs. I don't think you run all that effectively up the middle against the Niners. I think that this is a game where they're going to have to go outside. I think they're going to have to throw a little bit more, except Stafford got hit 13 times in this game too. They need to find something to slow down this Niners pass rush.
Early best ball drafts have drafters taking Akers at the end of the first round, early second round. Are you going to be in on him at that ADP?
No, I don't think I will be. A lot has to happen in the offseason. We'll see what happens with Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson both. But I think I'm going to probably take the receiver there.
Let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs.
So the running back picture for the Chiefs is far different than it was in Week 17. There was no CEH that week, and McKinnon had like 4 snaps. He was just coming back from his own injury here. So those are the 2 main backs. No, Darrell Williams, I think he had a big game against the Bengals. He had 2 touchdowns in that game. He won't be a big part of it, even if he's fully healthy. I think he's now back to third chair. I think McKinnon is that's the genie is out of the bottle. He's such a big difference maker in this passing game. Teams have to be aware of him in the scheme, and that opens things up for Hill. It opened things up for Kelsey. One of the things that the Chiefs have fixed, it's not just Hill and Kelsey anymore. You saw the huge yards against Buffalo, but Pringle made big plays. Blake Bell made a big play in the receiving game. And McKinnon's been very active in the receiving game, and I think that's something you have to account for. So I think that's something a little bit different. I think McKinnon's actually kind of sneaky to use as a cheap running back pivot if you're trying to build a lineup for this weekend.
I like that call. No one's ever questioned Jerick McKinnon's skills. It was his ability to stay on the field. And if you only need him for a game or two, that seems to be the right answer. Let's make one more prediction about the Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Is he now a dead zone running back, someone that you're not taking until the 5th or 6th round? Are you even comfortable taking him in the first 50 picks for best ball drafts for 2022?
He looked good against the Bills, but yeah, I mean, just look at the usage. He did get a little bit involved in the passing game, and that's big. That's what he needs to do to have that extra volume. And we'll see what the Chiefs roster looks like next year. See if McKinnon's still there. We'll see who else is still there. But unless he's involved in the passing game, like I'm taking Devin Singletary over him 100 times. He and Rashad Penny are two guys I think I'll be drafting a lot next year.
Let's move on to your Cincinnati Bengals. What are the sneaky plays, sneaky stats, under the radar stuff that I might be able to apply to my DFS and gambling this weekend?
So here's the thing about the Bengals. They're not very sneaky. They have a pretty narrow tree. They have 3 receivers on the field. Boyd has scored 4 out of the last 5 weeks. In fact, I was surprised he didn't do more against Tennessee. I thought because of the Titans pass rush, they might want to do more quick hitters to Boyd, have him work out of the slot. They didn't do that as much. The last 3 games of the regular season and once in the playoffs as well against the Raiders. So, he's not going to get a high volume, but he's going to be involved. I think he's kind of a good third receiver slot on DraftKings, kind of fill that one in a little bit. I think he'll bounce back after a bad week. We saw that the Chiefs secondary is Swiss cheese. It's shreddable. The Bengals shredded it. Josh Allen shredded it. Even if Tyrann Mathieu comes back after the concussion this week, I'm not really afraid of the secondary. It's can Burrow get enough time? Even when he gets sacked 9 times, he still goes to 340 though, Allen. I mean, it's amazing. I think it's going to be pass for the Bengals again. I don't think they'll try to do a little, keep them honest with Mixon, but it's just going to be the main parts of this passing offense. I want them.
Given that he's had about 7 targets a game in the last couple weeks, is CJ Uzomah a decent pivot he is $3,400? Are you comfortable given that he's got, a target floor at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I rank him behind Higbee, but if you need the extra dollars to save, sure.
Are you ready to see that Joe Mixon could be a top 5 overall pick in 1 quarterback fantasy leagues next year?
I'm not there for that. I can see it. I can see how people do. He's averaging less than 4 yards a carry, though. He hasn't really had a big, efficient game in a really long time, since the ankle injury, actually.
Does he belong in the first round of fantasy drafts at all?
Sure, I can see it.
In a year where most of the running quarterbacks did disappoint relative to their ADP, is there merit in the dynasty rankings on RotoWire.com? I've moved Joe Burrow, less mobile than some of the other elite guys, up to QB4. Are you on board with that for dynasty? And would you say he's his top 5 quarterback for redraft next year?
Hooday! I mean, look, he's awesome. Joe Burrow, you're not going to get me to say bad things about Joe Burrow here. Don't even try. Mahomes and Allen 1-2, but I go Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Burrow, and I go Herbert and Burrow as the 3-4, and then Jackson probably 5.
You have it exactly how I have our Dynasty Superflex rankings, in that exact order. 2 more predictions before we get you out of here is, will Tom Brady be playing professional football in 2022?
Yeah, one more time.
What team will Aaron Rodgers take his first snap on in 2022?
Broncos, maybe.
To see Jeff's value meter, where he ranks every player for the conference championship, click on the link in the video description below, and you can check out all our premium content for free for 10 days. Go to rotowire.com/try. And right now, we're starting to post more elements for our fantasy baseball draft kit. And if you like this video, click the like and subscribe button, as we're starting to put up more off-season dynasty fantasy football content, and you'll see baseball content coming as soon as the football season's over.